Howdy, welcome to the MasterCast. I'm your host, Ben Wiggins, and per usual, it's a beautiful day in Aggie land. True Brown, welcome to the show.
Nice to be here. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks for joining us today in this beautiful October day. Let's talk about the what, why, and how of what you've been doing over the last years.
Yeah, certainly. Well, I've been involved with nonprofits at A&M since I graduated, actually. 12th Man Foundation, Texas A&M Foundation. Mm-hmm. Currently, the lead development officer for Mays Business School, which means I get to go out and call on Aggies and talk about ways they can give back. Typically, philanthropically is what we're talking about, but Aggies, as you know, Ben, give back in a number of ways.
Sure.
Coming to talk to classes and mentoring, things like that too. And our team at Mays does a great job of involving former students and seeing where those relationships go. And it's usually a pretty fun process.
Yes, and your journey in the philanthropic world begins as I guess as mine did, such as it was at the 12th Man Foundation, working with Miles and Travis and the great gang over there.
Yep.
What were the most important things that you learned there? What were some of the misconceptions that you came in with that you were able to dispel during those times?
Yeah. Philanthropy, I think, is something that not a lot of people really know about. I know when I went to college, I didn't know that you could even have a job in this line of work. Mm-hmm. And I went to college to be a writer. I was a kind of a sports dork at heart, Ben, and worked on 12th Man magazine for a long time. That was kind of my role there for a number of years. And of course, we got to write about the teams and the coaches and the programs, but we also wrote about the donors and tried to tell their stories too. And it was as I started to write more of those stories, it was really fascinating to me why people would give so much money to support other people. Both my parents were teachers growing up. I mean, we gave money in the offering plate on Sundays, but we didn't have a ton of extra cash. We ate fine and everything, but so it was a really interesting concept to me that people would give back the way they did. And I got to sit down and interview people for these stories and learn about their motivations for supporting Texas A&M and other people, basically. And I kind of got bit by the bug, and I learned more about what higher ed fundraising and philanthropy is really all about, and decided to make a career change. I thought I had the best job ever when I was getting to do 12th Man magazine, and I think I've got an even better job now because I get to go out and talk to people who want to make a difference, and I get to sit across just like we're doing now and hear their stories about why they do what they do. So one thing I learned, I guess, to circle back to your question the long way, is that people really want to give back and they want to support other Aggies. They want to make this place even better. They want the experience of current students and generations of future students to be even better than the one that they had. And so that's a really cool process to be a part of.
How do you think the experience has changed the most for students between when you were here and when I was here earlier on? And what's the biggest difference in the student experience, for example?
Well, I would say, and you may agree with this, and I hear people say this all the time, I'm not sure we would get into Texas A&M now. The caliber of student here is sensational. So I think that's been a big change. I graduated in 2004, and I've seen in those, almost 20 years how the caliber of student has increased, but I think there's a lot of extra opportunities. It seems like a lot more students are pursuing study abroad, for example, and that's something that donors like to support as well, so we talk about that.
Sure.
We did internships back in the day, Ben, but that's you're seeing students do 2 or 3 of those now. So I think the level of professional preparedness when students come out of this place now is a little bit different than maybe it was when you and I were in school here.
No question. On major gift fundraising, what does that part of the game look like relative to, say, really everything else? I know Travis comes from Major Gifts, Travis Dabney, that is, who's now the head guy over at the 12th Man Foundation. What is different about that world than, let's call it, philanthropy at large?
I think a lot of our job as fundraisers for A&M is educating people on how the process works. It's a little confusing here. You've got the Texas A&M Foundation, you've got the Association of Former Students, you've got 12th Man, you've got the Bush Foundation, Corps Cadets. There's a lot of different avenues for people to give back.
Sure.
At the Texas A&M Foundation, we want to build a brighter future for Texas A&M one relationship at a time. And when we're talking to somebody about giving back, we're usually talking in terms of endowments. Endowments are a beautiful thing because they last forever. So if a donor would like to set up an endowed scholarship, for example, they'll fund that. The funds are invested by the Texas A&M Foundation, and the earnings from those investments are what's used every year for a scholarship stipend, for example.
Mm-hmm.
The cool thing about that is the corpus isn't touched, right? The corpus grows. So over time, a donor who sets up an endowment, it's not just a one-time deal. It's going to continue. That account's going to continue to live on and grow and impact students forever.
Mm-hmm.
So really what we're talking to people about is a lifetime legacy of supporting Texas A&M. So if Ben Wiggins sets up a scholarship in 2022, in 2032, that scholarship's still going to be there. It's going to be bigger, it's going to be better, and it's going to still be impacting students. So trying to paint that picture is something that we talk about with people a lot.
Do you ever get to the spot where one endowment, then all of a sudden you've done well enough with it that it can now fund 2 scholarships? What does that transition look like? And then the second question, which I can get to after that, is I got a question about how the market affects all this.
Sure. The answer to that is certainly yes. As endowments grow or donors continue to fund something, absolutely, it could maybe create one really big scholarship, a full ride scholarship, or maybe a donor might want to split it up into 2 or 3 scholarships. Certainly doable. It's a fun process because a big part of our job too is trying to blend the needs of a college or the university with a donor's intentions too. And so there's puzzle pieces that we get to try to put together that create a positive outcome for the school, the university, and the donor too. So trying to scratch as many itches as possible, I guess.
Sure.
And the second part of that question was?
Well, the market. So when the market is good, things are expanding really fast. Obviously, there's, opportunities, to do a lot of different things. And then when things are, slowing down a little bit, perhaps, how can you be nimble in reacting to that?
Sure. Well, we have a team of folks at the foundation who are a lot smarter than me who handle that. But the way the payouts work, and without getting into too much of the weeds, we base the annual payout. It's based on a 20-quarter rolling average of the market. So in high times, that's great, but the payout's not going to exactly reflect how much the market has run up. And similarly, when the market's dipping, there's still going to be a payout, and the corpus could, shrink a little bit, but the payout's still going to be a really consistent number. So the punchline basically is it's about 4% of an endowment value is what's used every year for a scholarship or a professorship or chair or whatever the donors set up. So it's a pretty consistent number it varies a little bit, but not too much.
So unlike the NBA, you guys do cap smoothing, which is what the NBA should have done, but that's a whole other conversation. You've been in College Station a long, long time. Talk about your earliest days here.
Well, I came here as a first-generation Aggie. My parents went to Stephen F. Austin. I had a couple friends who wanted to come here, so I came down for a visit one time. This was, fall of '99 was probably the first time I stepped foot on campus, and didn't know a ton about Texas A&M, had never been to Kyle Field. I remember driving down Houston Street and looking left out the car window and going, ooh, this place is big. I grew up in a little town called Ovilla, Texas, which is... you're a small town if you're a suburb of Midlothian or Waxahachie. So, about 1,500 people. So Kyle Field kind of blew me away a little bit. And then just walking around campus.
As it does.
It does. And the friendliness of students and just, it's exactly what you hear people talk about. And so I left that day going, man, this is my speed. This is my kind of place. I visited some other schools too, but it was all A&M for me after that. And really enjoyed my time here. Got really involved with writing for the battalion, which was a pretty fun job for a student.
Yeah.
Got to cover sports and learn a lot there and make some great connections, but decided I wanted to stick around. A lot of people, I think, after they graduate, they're ready to move on and get out of town, but me and some friends were like, how can we stay here longer? We really like it. So anyway, it's been a great place. Got a wife, 2 kids. We think this is an awesome place to raise a family. So couldn't imagine moving anywhere else right now.
And you met your wife at fish camp, if I'm not mistaken?
Right. So had a decently long-term relationship in high school that, I was going one way, she was going the other. We called it quits, and I'm thinking, man, no desire to meet anybody. And then I think it was day 2 of fish camp. So I didn't even make it to campus yet. And I met this real pretty brown-haired girl from Houston. And that was 22 years and a month ago, probably. So it's funny how things work out. No question.
And I remember hearing that their births have been associated with good events for the university. Can you? I don't know all the details, but can you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, I can. A&M's a pretty important part of our families, right? So I mentioned I met my wife at fish camp. So
Yep.
Our first daughter was actually born during the fourth quarter of the 2012 A&M Alabama football game. The Johnny game, which my funny story from that was, so we're in the delivery room and of course had the game on, and everybody in this town wanted to watch that game. I mean, I don't know if you were in town then. You may have been elsewhere.
I was at a steakhouse in Atlanta getting ready to shoot the first season of Devious Maids for ABC Studios. And we walked in and the game was on, not necessarily expecting to win.
Right.
But, I walked in and we were up like 3 touchdowns.
Crazy.
So we're up early, but that was my experience. But I want to hear about yours.
Yes. So this town was bananas that week.
Yeah.
I had tickets in a hotel room to go, but luckily cooler heads prevailed because my wife went into labor on Friday night. There was an exhibition basketball game we went to, and on the way home, we got some Whataburger, and she was like, hey, we might want to go grab the bag at the house and get to the hospital. So anyway, we do that.
Yeah.
The game is going on. Of course, we're watching it, and nurses keep coming in, doctors keep coming in to look at the TV, and then they'd go back out and make their rounds or whatever. So anyways, there's a lot going on in that delivery room. First time dad, I was, my head was just spinning constantly. And so it's time for, baby's coming out, and about halfway through the fourth quarter, and a couple funny stories. One of them, the doctor is, in doctor position, right?
Yeah.
He's going, push, Michelle, push. And then he would turn around and look at the TV for a second, see what was going on, and then turn back. All right, here we go. So this is going on, and I'm trying to do double duty, right? Comfort the wife, watch the screen.
Right.
Anyway, so our daughter's born. It's awesome. Best day ever. Well, there were still about 3 minutes left in the game at this time, and it's close. And I don't know if you remember how that game ended up, but
the Shazer Everett.
The Shazer Everett picks it off a fourth down pass in the end zone. Well, we're all, me, the doctors, the nurses, my poor wife is on the bed back by herself, and we're all kind of just huddled around this TV, and Everett picks off that pass, and the doctor, I'm sure nobody else has ever done this, turns to me, and I look at him. We both jump up, chest bump, bro hug. Of course, the hospital's going nuts. Our neighbors all come up to celebrate. It was a day unlike any other, for sure. A lot of emotions in that delivery room. So yeah. I figure she is. If anybody from admissions is listening to this, she should be a guaranteed admit for the class of 2035. I think. So let's see if we can work that in.
Yes, and then there was a not quite as big one the second time around as well, if I remember.
Yeah, well, our son was born in a. It's funny. I always base everything off sports seasons. That's just kind of the way my strange mind works. But his first sporting event to go to was a big basketball game. We beat Kentucky in overtime. Yeah. The year the Aggies won the SEC regular season championship, had a pretty good team, went to the Sweet 16. So anyway, we've got pictures of him. I think he's like 12 days old, watching the Aggies win a big basketball game in front of a packed house. So I think the punchline is the Browns need to have more kids.
Yes, that is definitely.
I don't know how likely that is, but I wish we could.
Yes. We've talked a little bit about the balance between work and life. Now, it seems like that may be particularly tricky for you because work is bound up in this thing that's so exciting and relates so much to your personal life and your personal experience. So it's sort of like it's almost like it's the Venn diagram of that is a little not confusing, but a little complex for sure. How do you make that make sense for you and your family? Yeah,
it's tough. I mean, I think most people who live in this town, though, their lives revolve around the university in some form or fashion.
It's the greatest academic institution in the universe. So
yeah. So it's just part of what you do. Of course, like most people who live around here who have kids, your kids are involved in sports and their friends and birthday parties on the weekends and all that kind of thing. So it could be a little bit of a challenge, but I think it's something that everybody in College Station gets to juggle, and we all enjoy doing it.
What does that look like for you, though?
Sure. Outside of the kids stuff, everybody's got to have their hobby where they kind of can step away and let the brain relax. So usually if I'm not with the kids or with the family or traveling somewhere for work, man, I've got the barbecue pit fired up in the backyard. I've got some ribs or a brisket on, watching the game on TV or whatever it may be. That's a nice way to pass a Saturday or Sunday afternoon and just kind of relax a little bit. Take some time to yourself.
And you are one of 50 men who know how to cook.
Well, so I've got some buddies that we like to barbecue, and there's a really cool fundraiser in town called 50 Men Who Can Cook that the College Station ISD Foundation puts on every year. And
right.
Anyway, it's out at the Expo Center in Bryan, and So we've had a team for that. I got to put the plug in. 3-time defending champs.
The three-peat.
The three-peat is
the much desired three-peat.
So we have a lot of fun with that. It's a cool way to get to hang out with some buddies, call it a volunteer day,
right.
and help the local schools raise money. So that's pretty cool.
When is it this year?
It's usually in February.
Okay.
So I haven't heard when the 2023 version will be, but
so you're in off season right now.
Come by and find Ring of Fire barbecue in February and come grab some good Q. So.
Training for the quadfecta.
That'd be a nice one. That'd be a good feather in the hat.
Yes. Any other nonprofit ventures that seems like a particularly important thing to you? What else are you involved with?
Yeah,
locally?
definitely. One thing I've gotten involved with the last couple years is a nonprofit called Kairos Prison Ministry. What we do in Kairos is we're tied in with the Wallace Pack prison unit down in Navasota.
Okay.
It's a men's unit down there, and we get to go in a couple times a year for a 4-day program. And so we have several trainings that lead up to this, but we'll get a chance to hopefully spread a really positive message for some men who live in a really not positive place. And that's something something that's really grabbed my heart and been a lot of fun to be involved with. Thankfully, I've not spent a lot of time in jail most of my life and didn't think this would be something I would ever really kind of fall in love with. But man, it's a pretty special thing. And I think it just kind of follows with what I do for work too, right? It's wanting to give back, wanting to support through work. I get to talk to other people who Aggies who want to make a difference for others. And this is kind of one way maybe I in my personal life can hopefully make a difference for some guys they've made some bad decisions in their life, certainly. But there's some things they need to know about too. And so we kind of spread that message. So
what's been the best moment to come out of that?
Man, that's a great question. So the first time I went in there, I was very nervous. Jail's a pretty
intense.
It's just not a pleasant place to be. It's not a comfortable place to be. And so, and I didn't know what the guys would be like. They set us in groups of 6. So you're with the same group of 6 guys all weekend and there's a lot of programming that goes on. And, so I didn't know what these guys would be like. Were they going to be
how they would
react?
react?
Are they going to be angry? Are they going to be nice? Do they want to hear what we're trying to say?
Sure.
And, one thing that has really struck me ever since the first day I went in was a lot of these guys are a lot like me and you. So during meal times, we're sitting together and you talk about what people talk about. You talk about your family and your kids and your job and your favorite sports team and cars. And, so you're sitting close with these guys for several days, and we're in there. It's a 4-day program. We're in there from about 6 a.m. to about 7 p.m. every day.
Yeah.
And so you learn a lot about these guys. And that's one thing that really stuck with me or still sticks with me is these guys are a lot like people on the outside. They've made some really bad choices to get where they are, but it makes you think too, hey man, that could be me, or that could be any of us who,
Sure.
couple things don't go your way and your life's pretty darn different. So getting to relate, I know what my impression of prison was and people in prison specifically before I got involved with this. And again, certainly people who are in there have made bad choices and or had really tough circumstances they've had to work through. But at the end of the day, man, they're still people with feelings, and like I said, they're not a whole lot different than a bunch of us on the outside.
Yeah.
So their road has been different than ours, but that really struck me. Yeah.
Anything specific you can talk about in terms of impact, or was there a particular conversation that resonated powerfully for you?
Yeah. I don't know how much we can deviate onto a faith-based topic, but there's one guy who I got to be. I was in there in the springtime, and there was a gentleman who I sat next to at every meal, every small group discussion, and we'd gotten to be pretty close. And it was really interesting. Part of our deal is we don't ask why you're in here. Don't really want to know, but if they want to talk about it, love to. Sometimes that's part of the process for them.
Sure.
Forgiveness and all that is to talk about this kind of stuff. So you hear some really interesting things when you're in there.
Right.
Don't really ask to hear it, but you do.
Sure.
And so it was getting on the last day, and this guy kind of pulled me aside and he goes, "Hey, True, I need to tell you why I'm in here." And I told him about my family. He knew I had kids, and he goes, "Hey," and I won't be too descriptive on here, but he said, "Man, I'm in jail because I did something really bad to a kid." And he explained a little bit about it, and it was a girl who was about the same age as my daughter. And I was like, well, first of all, I had a hard time, you picture your family in that situation. What would be going through your mind as a dad?
Yeah.
And man, I couldn't hardly look at the guy for a little while, but talk through it. And we'd just done a full day's worth of talk about forgiveness. So I was on the spot right away.
Yeah.
To have to, in what little way I could forgive him for what he had done, because it was a really personal thing to me, talking about someone who's reminds me of my daughter. And anyway, so I tell that part of the story to tell this one. I got to talking to another guy who's been involved with Kairos on the inside. He's a prisoner as well for a long time. And he said, I was talking about the gentleman who had told me that story. Yeah. And he goes, yeah, that's interesting. Me and him have become, we're prayer partners. We lean on each other in here. And I said, oh, that's a really cool story. And he said, yeah. So I'm in jail because I killed a guy who did something to my daughter like that. And he's prayer partners with a guy who's in jail because he did the exact same thing to somebody.
Yeah.
So it was a really powerful moment for me. And again, obviously, Kairos is a faith-based program.
Yeah.
And somebody told me once upon a time when I first got involved that you'll see Jesus or God inside jail more than you will outside of it.
Yeah.
And man, that one smacked me in the face. Only through a higher power, in my opinion, could something like that happen. Where those two guys become really tight.
I'll let that breathe for a second.
Yeah, sorry to go on that path.
No, I asked the question.
That's the kind of stuff, man. Anyway, Kairos is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Come in with us sometime.
Yeah.
Come check it out.
I will. What's next for you? We have the additional business school building.
Man, we've got a lot of fun stuff going on around here. The fall is crazy in Aggie land. We all know about football season, but there's always tons of other events too. And so October 28th, we are super excited to break ground on the new building. That'll be a part of the business school complex. This is such a cool story, I think, because it's been supported by a number of people. Obviously, the university is bought in and is providing about a third of the funding. The provost's office or the chancellor's office is providing about a third of the funding, and donors are providing about a third of the funding. And the cool thing about fundraising for this one has been that donors committed to this before there were even renderings or pictures or drawings to look at. They bought into the vision, though, of what this space could mean for business school students. So most projects around here that are capital building projects, and you go out with your pitch book and your pictures and your renderings and the naming opportunity lists and all these things and talk to people. This one, it was just, it was former Dean Eli Jones who kind of was one of the true visionaries of this project many years ago. And he talked to some of the best supporters at Mays about it. And Aggies, like Aggies do, were ready to support it. They didn't know what the pictures were going to look like. They didn't know where their name might be involved on a room or a space, but they knew it was needed. And that's another example of how philanthropy, I think, is so cool around here. And that's a really non-traditional way that a really awesome building has been funded and supported by former students of this university. Just Aggies are awesome, man. You hear the vision and you want to help. And that's pretty cool. Very non-traditional part of fundraising.
Yeah, and you see it come to life in all kinds of unexpected ways. The core values and as you said, the vision, all of that stuff shows up in completely unexpected places sometimes. What else did we not talk about that we should have?
I think it's so cool to get to be a part of the long-term future at Texas A&M. And I say that from a standpoint of, I don't have the means like some Aggies who have gone off and done awesome things to make a super personal, direct impact. But to be a part of the process and help Aggies find a way to give back, I think is just a really it's a really neat calling, I think. And part of the reason I want to bring this up is because we need more fundraisers at Texas A&M. There are so many Aggies out there who have done so great and want to make a difference. We need more folks to go into this line of work. And I mentioned earlier that I didn't really even know this was a real job when I got to college, that you could go out and be someone who talks about Texas A&M for a living. So any shameless plug, any students out there who want to get into making a difference at Texas A&M and having a real impact on this campus long term, consider a career in development. It's a ton of fun.
Where would they go to get more information?
Man, we are at the Texas A&M Foundation. We have a jobs page on txamfoundation.com. You can find some information there. And most of us development officers like talking about the work we do. So find any one of us on the webpage, shoot us an email, and we would be happy to tell you about the job we get to do.
How do they shoot you an email?
Oh, man. Brown, TBROWN at txamfoundation.com. I'll talk to you all day about it.
All right, my friend. Any good bull today?
So I've got good bull I want to share. Earlier this semester, we had Texas A&M had the grand opening of Aggie Park, which is right next to Kyle Field.
Yeah.
Beautiful space. If you haven't seen it yet, everybody go check it out. It's awesome. So they opened the park with a big concert on Friday night. So I mentioned a little bit about my background meeting my wife at A&M. One of our first dates ever was in the fall of 2000 back here, and it was a Robert Earl Keen concert.
Robert Earl Keen.
You know it. We ended up, we traveled all over Texas watching Robert Earl Keen shows. And so this is his, he's retired this fall. His last show was recently at Flores Country Store. And anyway, so we're kind of live music junkies and like to go watch a good concert. Well, anyway, part of the grand opening was Robert Earl Keen on Friday night. So my good bull is to thank donors like Wayne Roberts, class of '85, who helped provide a lead gift for Aggie Park. He talked at the ribbon cutting about how much he looked forward to hearing people's stories about what that space the cool things that would happen in that space at Aggie Park. So my cool thing is my wife and I we got to take our two kids, their only Robert Earl Keen concert, Robert Earl's last concert in College Station. And as for our relationship arc, right, meeting at Fish Camp and then our first date ever, or one of our first dates ever being a Robert Earl Keen show, that was a cool thing. So my good bull is to any donors who help support that project, to help create memories, because that's really what philanthropy is all about. Planting trees under whose leaves and branches you won't sit.
Yeah.
They all planted a pretty cool tree that my family and I got to experience. So good bull, folks like Wayne Roberts, class of '85, who helped support that project, made for a really cool Friday night for me and my kids and lots of other people. So there's my good bull for the day.
By the way, if you guys are live music junkies, have you been over to Stampede yet?
No.
It's in the mall. Hear me out.
I've been to previous versions of that place in the mall for concerts.
It is so impressive.
Okay.
It looks like I've not been to Billy Bob's, but like size and scope wise, like it's that kind of place. It's huge.
Okay.
And they've got this big dance floor, and like the whole back wall is lined with booths. They got 12 TVs in there. It's a giant bar area, and the menu is very impressive for it's bar food, but like 4 steps up.
So what you're saying is May's MasterCast after hours.
Yes.
I will be a guest on that. Just let me know when.
Indeed, over at Stampede.
Just let me know when.
Yeah, Derek Kroc is the general manager over there, and they're running a great ship. But Drew, thanks so much for the time. We appreciate you coming on today.
Man, anytime, Ben. Thank y'all.
Take care.